Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, the government now knows when the first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine will arrive in country. The police commissioner defends a force under fire amid an international investigation into Peter Nygard. And big changes to policies at children's homes following concerns over the well-being of residents. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the Bahamas will receive its first 100,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine in the next few weeks, according to a statement issued by the Office of the Prime Minister today. The government receiving formal notice from COVAX that the first doses will be delivered starting the second half of February through the second quarter of 2021. More details about that will be revealed at the National COVID-19 Vaccine Consultative Committee's first press conference on Thursday. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Delon Brennan earlier this week revealing more information on the vaccine rollout. Addressing a Facebook Live event held by the Bahamian American Association of the Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region, Dr. Brennan said based on how rollout goes, the Bahamas may need to use more than one vaccine.
We are trying not to be restrictive, but we do know that some of the issues around being, an island nation, being in a tropical setting, being spread out in not one singular landmass, present particular challenges for us. And so we are designing our vaccine deployment strategy around that to be able to make sure that what we bring in country can be used as efficiently as possible. And the vaccines that fit into that criteria are the ones that are more likely to be used in country.
Dr. Brennan says if the Bahamas receives one vaccine that cannot fulfill the needs of the entire country, the Ministry of Health will use one and then another vaccine. But he maintains that there will be strict tracking of who gets which vaccine and whether they will need a second dose. This as the Bahamas faces unique challenges as an archipelago, including how temperature-sensitive vaccines are transported around the country.
Using things that can be refrigerated within our healthcare facilities at a temperature that doesn't require ultra-low temperatures will definitely be an advantage to us. And so as some of those vaccines become more available, our preference would be to use those vaccines. So what we do know is right now, some of the thoughts around, the AstraZeneca vaccines not necessarily needing as much. You mentioned the Johnson & Johnson vaccine requiring one shot versus having the two shots. Those are some concerns that, our populace has. And so we are leaning in those directions.
Well, Police Commissioner Paul Roll firing back at claims made in a recently released Canadian Broadcasting Corporation documentary on Peter Nygard. Roll telling reporters he does not believe the documentary is making allegations against Bahamian police officers has tarnished the force's image, as he insists it's Nygard who is in legal hot water, not police. Jasmine Brown reports.
The police commissioner was on the defense as he insisted it's not the force being investigated, but Peter Nygard.
I have not seen the documentary, and I am extremely pleased with the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. None of those officers have been indicted, and I don't have any complaint against any of them. And I believe that as Bahamians, we ought to respect the fact that these young men and women who give their lives to keep all of us safe are doing a tremendous job.
Commissioner Roll was responding to questions surrounding the CBC's Nygard documentary and its impact on the Royal Bahamas Police Force's image. The documentary that was aired last week alleged that police officers were paid to look the other way, as Canadian fashion designer Peter Nygard allegedly carried out sex crimes in the Bahamas.
And I've spoken to the persons from the CBC, and I believe that the members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force are some of the best in the world. I don't know that the image or reputation of the Royal Bahamas Police Force is damaged. There are some allegations made against Peter Nygard, and I think we should focus on that. Let us try and deal with that. Peter Nygard is alleged to have molested a number of women. Those matters are being investigated. I don't hear the Royal Bahamas Police Force being investigated. Let's stick with the facts.
This is not the first time members of the RBPF have been accused of taking bribes in relation to the Nygaard case. Last year, National Security Minister Marvin Dames said police would launch an investigation following the filing of a class action lawsuit against Nygaard in New York last February, which claims that Nygaard evaded exposure to his alleged sexual abuse in the Bahamas by bribing local officials. Asked how the investigation is going, Roll said this.
You need to speak to Minister Dames.
He said that you're conducting as Commissioner of Police.
I said he made the comments, and you could get the update from him.
In December 2020, Nygaard was indicted in New York on multiple charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and other crimes. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, the tourism industry has taken some heavy body blows during the pandemic, according to Tourism Minister Dionisio D'Aguilar, who says uncertainty in the industry has even pushed back the reopening date of one major resort on Grand Bahama. Jillian Gray has that.
Despite projections that the Grand Lucayan could open by February, the tourism minister said that's no longer the case. The government is now back to the table to try to figure out a date.
The government is of course, deciding when it should reopen. I think that the government is very close to deciding that it should reopen. I mean, obviously, conditions on the ground are not ideal.
In 2020, the government inked a deal with Royal Caribbean International and the ITM Group for the sale and redevelopment of that resort. It was said that the resort would open by February, but in the current tourism market, D'Aguilar said that's no longer feasible. It's not just the Grand Lucayan taking a major hit due to the pandemic, but other resorts as well.
I spoke to a number of the operators of the major hotels in New Providence, and they said as soon as President Joe Biden floated the idea of a possible mandatory quarantine, a lot of people called up and canceled.
He added that both the U.S. and Canada's travel restrictions have had a significant impact on travel.
Tourism has been impacted significantly by President Joe Biden's statement about the possibility of quarantining, even though that got walked back. That had a significant impact on travel. And then, of course, you have Prime Minister Trudeau's statement banning all flights to the Caribbean by Canadian travelers. So that has had a significant impact on the number of visitors that are coming here. So tourism is seemingly at the moment getting a lot of body blows.
With so much uncertainty in the market, D'Aguilar said they're simply trying to do their best to keep the industry afloat until more people get vaccinated, which he hopes will then spur travel. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
The Ministry of Social Services has adopted a number of recommendations made by the National Child Protection Council, according to Minister Frankie Campbell. Top of that list, ceasing corporal punishment and implementing a behavior modification program for children.
Cease any form of corporal punishment immediately until further discussion. We also accepted a recommendation to come up with a behavior modification program for the children. It is important that while we won't administer corporal punishment, that the behavior of the children are such that it is acceptable in any social environment.
The issue was thrust into the spotlight following a video of children being beaten at the Children's Emergency Hostel. Campbell says in addition to in-house training, an external accredited training program will be added to the requirement for employment at homes. Officials are also adopting the council's recommendation for routine visits to homes.
Top brass visitation, meaning some person of a higher rank from the Ministry of Social Services, the Department of Social Services, who is attached at the home, will visit on a regular basis to ensure that logs are being properly kept and maintained. We also accept a recommendation from the council that some member of the council will also visit randomly to ensure that there is oversight.
Well, hundreds gathered at the fish fry on Sunday night. However, most people at the popular venue weren't worried about the large crowds. Jared Higgs tells us more.
It was more like a regular Sunday at the fish fry last week as scores of people crowded the outdoor portions of the venue. Most people we spoke to, like 23-year-old Gia Pennerman, weren't worried about the crowds.
Yes, once everybody follow the precautions, the safety protocols, you should be okay. Everybody wear their masks and practice social distancing. I hope they do.
Dozens of bikers, among hundreds of others, made their usual Sunday visit to the Fry. Football was off, so Dale Gray of the Platinum Riders says more people were out than usual.
It's a weekly thing for us. Like you said, we're bikers enthusiasts, so we just love to ride and touch one or two spots.
Fanny St. Ville says she came onto Arawaki with her sister to enjoy a night out. She says she's been traveling all over Europe to Georgia, the country, and Amsterdam. She claims those countries are more relaxed.
I went in October of last year. If you don't travel out of this country to realize that what's happening is not what they're making it seem, you'll be blind.
Bahamians may still be traveling, but not many visitors have been finding their way to Bahamian shores. We came across Carlton Newton, a taxi driver with 8 years' experience. Business has been slow, so we came out to the fish fry to try to make some extra money.
See how the police presence, they're doing it like this, before they had all the gates open, but now they're closed, the gates are closed, and the police are regulating, so it's safe out here.
Despite the large crowds and traffic getting in, Police Commissioner Paul Roll says officers had no issues with overcrowding. He says businesses were compliant with the order and persons were well behaved. Except for this confrontation between two men. If you look closely at the man in the turquoise shirt, you can see a bottle in his hand. Police eventually came over to make sure cooler heads prevailed. Overall, most people said they felt safe since everybody was outdoors. And while most agreed that social distancing measures were needed, Bahamian Canadian Rosalind Brown said she thinks the pandemic is nonsense and would be happier without having to wear masks.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's a mild virus with over 99% recovery rate. So I'm very happy that we're able to act like free people and be here. And I don't think we should need to be locked down, and I don't think we should need to wear masks.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
How low will temperatures get tonight? Greg Thompson has the answer over in the weather studio.
Thanks, Christina. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather. Woke up to some chilly temperatures this morning. Temperatures managed to get up into the 50s. We are right now into the low 60s. Managed to get up into the upper 60s early today. Breezy conditions still. The winds out of the northwest at 17 knots. And your feels like temperature feeling near 60 degrees with that wind out there. Frontal boundary pushing towards the south, now exiting the area, but that cold intrusion of air mass moving across our area, producing those cool temperatures, and the winds are going to continue to make things a lot cooler for the rest of the evening. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, a family left homeless and jobless since March. And Doctors Hospital renames a ward after a doctor who lost his life to COVID. That's coming up when our news returns.
Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits, venture into unknown territory, take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV, cable channel 212, and streaming live on Facebook.
A family of 4 is forced to sleep in a car as a 30-year-old mother struggles to support her kids during the pandemic. Jared Higgs has their story.
It's the coldest morning of the year when we meet 30-year-old Claudia Grant at the playground on Montague Beach. The mother of 3, including a 2-month-old, is wearing a thin sweater, and she worries about her baby coming out into the cold. She's just come from sleeping in her car with the children.
I just need somewhere for my turn to be. It ain't for me, it's for them.
Grant's newborn is eventually brought over. He's been crying to be fed, but truth is, Grant is hungry too. She lost her job back in March and hasn't worked since. She has relied on aid, like government's Food Distribution Task Force and church charities to get by. Her landlord housed her for free for several months, and Grant is grateful for the grace period. But she says she was asked to leave and is now sleeping in her cousin's car.
If it was just me, but I just say let me and my girl sleep in the car with her. I couldn't leave her out there because she don't have a car and I have a car. So all her stuff in my car, and I let her sleep with me. I mean, we sleep together.
Besides being unemployed and now homeless, Grant's 11-year-old daughter is falling behind in school. She hasn't done any classes since last March.
Don't want to repeat or nothing. I just want to, I just want them to be, comfortable and have their education and what's not. I want the best for them.
Grant's 2-year-old son is oblivious to his mother's struggles. He smiles for the camera and plays happily on the swing set nearby. His mother is from Freeport and has worked odd jobs over the years. She says she's tried to get hired during the pandemic, but nobody had jobs to offer her. She says she goes to her grandmother for food sometimes, but other than that, she has little help. The children's fathers aren't in their lives.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Every day, every day people on the streets and I see them, young ladies just like me too.
If you can help Claudia, please give her a call at 465-0411. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Well, Doctors Hospital honoring the legacy of Dr. Judson Eneas, who was the country's 5th COVID-19 related death and the first physician to die from the virus. Today, the hospital's dialysis unit was renamed in his honor. Giorgio Bain reports.
The life and legacy of Dr. Judson Eneas was honored here at Doctors Hospital today with the renaming of the ward where he marked most of his accomplishments, almost 1 year to his passing. Palm Sunday will mark the anniversary of the passing of Dr. Judson Eneas, who lost his battle with COVID-19 last year. Dr. Eneas was a prominent nephrologist who established the first dialysis unit at Doctors Hospital. Today, that unit was renamed in his honor. The ceremony bringing tears to the eyes of his wife, Marchetta Eneas, who says it's a blessing to see his legacy live on.
What does this mean to me? Don't make me cry. It means a lot. It means a lot. I don't know what else to say. I'm surprised. I just thought it was going to be an opening, but it was really about my husband, who loved Doctors Hospital, loved what he did.
Eneas' sister, Dr. Agreta Eneas Carey, says it's unfortunate that her brother isn't alive for the momentous occasion.
But it's really a wonderful gesture, and we are very grateful to Doctors Hospital for not just, letting things just go. And so I think it's all very lovely with the blankets and everything. And we're very happy because Judson worked very hard.
President of Doctors Hospital, Dr. Charles Diggers, says after the accomplishments that Dr. Eneas made at the hospital, it is the least that they could have done.
To recognize and to acknowledge a significant contribution of Dr. Eneas. It's really significant to appreciate that he started exclusively in the private sector renal replacement therapy. That's quite a challenge. It's always good to be supported in a public sector, but he had to come home and get it started on his own, and he made it thrive. So Doctors Hospital is delighted today to be able to acknowledge his contribution.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
There's more news coming up, but first, your RF Market Watch.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by Cable Bahamas Business Solutions, the experts for all your business needs. This has been your Financial Market Minute. Cable Bahamas Business Solutions, giving you trusted solutions that work for you and your business. Contact us today.
Still to come, how police are training to deal with domestic violence and the latest in sports. Stay with us.
Basketball is back, baby, and so is NBA League Pass, only with Rev Trio. Sign up for Rev Trio today and enjoy NBA League Pass absolutely free, along with incredible prizes including a brand new 50-inch smart TV, NBA gear, and more.
With tons of prizes and gear, signing up for Trio is the best on and off-court move this year. Just call 601-8992 or visit www.rev.bs/promotions/trio.
Sign up for Rev Trio today and enjoy NBA League Pass absolutely free.
This is our news. Welcome back. The Bahamas Customs, Immigration and Allied Workers Union has filed a trade dispute over hiring practices at the Immigration Department, according to Union President Sloan Smith. Smith is calling on officials to give employees within the organization the opportunity to apply and interview for positions before bringing others in.
We call on the government, one, to deal with this issue of the person who you just hired. I don't know the value. This man has to be God himself. Because no hiring, no increments, no promotion, but out of nowhere, he shows up, he's the solution.
Smith insists there are capable men and women in the Immigration Department who can fill top posts. The trade dispute was filed on January 29th, but Smith is suggesting the union won't stop there if its concerns are not addressed.
And this eventually leads to strike certificates. And one of the things we said to the government was, we're coming into an election season, man. Nobody ever wants this kind of thing, and all of a sudden you pull this kind of foolishness? Who does that?
In other news, dozens of police officers from across the country will participate in a hybrid training seminar on domestic violence over the next 3 days. Police Commissioner Paul Roll says tackling domestic violence is one of the key points of his 2021 policing plan, which hasn't been released yet.
And this year, you'll see some more. We're expanding that even more this year, as we realize that although the numbers are down, I'm not naive in believing that that is all. You know, these are what we report are those matters that are reported to us. But it could reasonably assume, it could be more. But to make sure that our officers are sensitized in dealing with the members of the public so that more persons would be willing to come forward.
Crisis Center Representative Novia Carter-Lookie says domestic violence remains a concern during the pandemic.
Bahamas Crisis Center remains committed in ensuring that children are also safeguarded this time. Internationally, the statistics also indicate to us that there's an increase worldwide on the incidence of domestic violence. For us, our major concern has to be that once domestic violence increases, child abuse also increases. And so our intention is to continue to educate the general public and how we can safeguard our children.
Tonight in sports, a couple of wins for Bahamian NBA stars as they continue with regular season play. Marcellus Hall has more.
Thanks once again. Welcome to our sports on a Tuesday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The season has not been particularly a good one for Buddy Hield and the Sacramento Kings. Last night, they were hoping for a much-needed win as they begin their quest towards making it at least into the top 8 for the Western Conference. Let's take a look. Buddy Hield, the Kings on the road up against the New Orleans Pelicans last night. What an evening for the Kings' De'Aaron Fox as he poured in 38 points. Kings erase a 10-point fourth-quarter deficit. They go on to win this thing 118-109. As for Buddy, he played 39 minutes. Didn't shoot particularly well, just 4 of 15 on the night. Finished up with 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Kings now 9-11 on the season. They're 11th in the Western Conference. Their next game on Wednesday, taking on the Boston Celtics. As for DeAndre Ayton, he and his Phoenix Suns on the road, taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Suns down early, but they would come back, trailing by 11. They take this one 111-105 as Ayton finished up with 10 points, 17 rebounds and a block. The win by the Suns, they're third in a row. They improved to 11-8. That's good for 6th in the West as they visit the Pelicans on Wednesday. And that's your check on sports for you here on this Tuesday evening. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Still to come, a company works to lay COVID to waste. The details after this break.
Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits. Venture into unknown territory. We take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV Cable Channel 212 and streaming live on Facebook on the R News Bahamas page.
Welcome back to our news. Temperatures dip across the country, but for how long? Greg is back in the Weather Center.
Thanks again, Christina. In our second look at weather, we take a look at our satellite view. Frontal boundary racing through the area yesterday, now moving across Hispaniola as we speak. High pressure building behind that, bringing in that cool air mass, and that cool air mass will be with us for at least another day before things start to warm up. Of course, the winds are what's happening out there, so boating is going to be a challenge for you, as well as beaching. We're asking you boaters and beachgoers to exercise extreme caution. Speaking of boating, we have an advisory still posted for you boaters out there. Northwest winds, they come down 15 to 20 knots. Seas running 3 to 5 feet near shore, but up to 8 feet offshore and some moderate swells. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe and cool night, everybody. Back to Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Impact Waste Management unveiling a new truck dedicated to frontline workers. The truck encourages Bahamians to help lay COVID to waste. Company President Wellington Roll says it was important for them to show their appreciation for those who continue to do so much to save lives during the pandemic.
We thank them for the risk of the daily exposure to protect us and putting themselves and their families at risk every day for our sake. Some have made the ultimate in sacrificing safety to providing a service that protects us all. We salute our frontline workers, and we want to express our love and indebtedness to you. Thank you.
The company is also helping to fight the spread of COVID-19, according to Roll, who says all business transactions can now be conducted on Impact Waste's website. Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.